So I've been wanting to make this video for a while, and it's relating to this whole situation around Cuba, the leftist communists going to Cuba, and my perspective as someone who escaped Cuba, communism. It's extremely upsetting for people who have lived in Cuba, who suffer the consequences of such a disgusting ideology, which is communism and socialism. The idea that everybody's equal. And the end result that happens in every country is, yes, everybody ends up being equally poor. And then these people go there, travel to your country to try to lecture you. Oh no, this is not real socialism. It's like a female that was abused by her husband or boyfriend. She got punched in the eye, and she said, "Oh, that's not real abuse. This guy got whatever when they got abused." I'm like, no. There's a difference between what leftists are describing and what we lived. You read it on a book. We lived it. And all this fucking leftist piece of shit that are going to Cuba, pretending that everything is good, this Hassan Piker piece of shit, saying, oh, the US government does not allow us to stay in anything but 5-star hotel. While I'm going to show you footage how the whole Havana was without power and only their hotel had power. And if it was only US communists and socialists, but it's socialists from all over the country, from all over the world. You got people from Spain, the socialists from over there, saying, "Oh, look, Cuba's good. Everything is fine in Cuba," showing picking the best spots just to say, "You see, Cuba's doing great." And you know how your family's over there, that they're cooking with wood, that they barely have food. You send them money, and they're like, "I have the money and I cannot find food." And then they have the fucking audacity to tell you, "Oh, no, it's not real socialism. Oh, it's because of the US." Go fuck yourself. It's not because of the US. It's because of the socialist system that they have implemented in Cuba. And the other part that bothers me is I saw this video recently. These two leftists debating about capitalism. And they're like, "Oh yeah, I wouldn't leave the US, even though I think the US is a horrible place, because I wouldn't want to leave my mom or want to leave my grandma." I left by myself. When I got here, my mom was in Cuba, my brother was in Cuba, all the family that I lived with was in Cuba. What the fuck you mean? Oh, you don't want to leave your grandma. Of course you will leave your grandma and everything, because when you're desperate, when you don't have a choice, that's what you do. Or like a really close friend of mine who got on a raft when he was 15 years old and didn't tell his mom. And then people have the audacity to tell us, "Oh no, what you live is not real socialism." But you always have horrible people, leftists and communists, going there, rubbing it in your face, like they were rubbing in the face of the Cubans, which I'm going to show clips as well, where he was like with a cookie while the kid was dancing, seeing the yeah, I don't want to curse. I curse too much already. But it is quite upsetting seeing those things and then having people lecture you about it. That's why I always say that you have to be careful with the extremes. Because these people, these communists, they care more about being anti-US and anti-capitalism than being in actual support of the Cuban people, who are the ones that are suffering in there. They don't care about that. It's just a trip where you're gonna stay in a 5-star hotel. What are you gonna see? And they're talking with the dictator in Cuba. It's like, what's going on with these people? And they want to blame it on the blockade. But they don't want to. The people that don't know is that Cuba has trade with most countries in the world. What's the problem with Cuba? Cuba doesn't pay. And when you don't pay, you cannot buy stuff. You have a line of credit, you abuse your line of credit, you default on your debt, and then they're like, hey, we're gonna pardon it, but we cannot do it again. And then Cuba does that again. So Cuba is only trusted as long as they pay. And since they don't allow the internal private sector to actually grow because they think they're gonna get power and it's gonna threaten their system, nothing ever grows. That's why in Cuba people are starving and you cannot grab fish even though it's a freaking island. Cuba went from one of the biggest exporting countries of sugar. Cuba now imports sugar. A significant percentage of the chicken that Cubans eat come from the United States, from Georgia. I've seen the receipts. But no. It's the blockade, it's the embargo. Because at the end, they just keep repeating the same talking points from the dictatorship. And it's the point that I'm making about the abuser. If the victim comes to you asking for help, and all you're repeating is what the abuser is saying, you don't care about the people. You don't care about the victim. You just care about your ideology, and that's why you're going there to protect it. And people are gonna say, oh, but what Trump is doing to Cuba, it's unfair. What they have been doing to the Cuban people for 70 years, it's unfair. Look at Miami. Miami's what, 30%? Or between Cubans and Cuban descendants, it's like 40% of Miami. It's Cuban. Miami is a successful country. It's a successful city. I'm talking about the growth. I'm talking about the economy. Yes, there's investment for other places, but when you have a system where people don't trust you with money, if I give you money so you can invest it in your company, and I have no guarantees that I can get my money back, I'm not putting my money in. That's the problem with Cuba. And I personally do support everything that Donald Trump is doing. And honestly, even with that last chip of oil that they allowed from Russia, I know they allowed it because what's going on with Iran and stuff. I wouldn't have allowed it. They have to sit at the table and they have to pack their stuff, undo a Maduro on them. 1,000%. How many people have to keep dying and starving to death for many years just because nobody has the spine to do anything about it? People are like, let's have a dialogue. Let's have a conversation. For how long? How long are you going to try the same thing, fail, try the same thing, fail, try the same thing, fail, and then you're like, I should try something different. I'm glad that he's doing something different. You might disagree. Look at the Venezuelans, how happy they are when they got Maduro. Not a perfect process, but they're in a better situation than they were before. And the changes are going to come. Hopefully, Cuba's next. Hopefully, this peace with Iran occurs, and Cuba's next. That's all that I'm hoping. Yes, it might be rough. Yes, a lot of tough decisions might be taken. That's what happens with leadership. If you want to be a coward that never makes a decision because you don't want the criticism, there's a bench for that. There's a comment section. There's Twitter. There's Facebook. You can do all that. But people sometimes have to make tough decisions, and I think the decisions that they're making are making it. I mean, I'm glad for Marco Rubio because that's the only chance we actually had. Because let's be honest, Americans don't really care about Cuba. They don't. I have talked to people in the U.S. and Spain, and when you ask them where's Cuba, they don't know where Cuba is. Cuba's irrelevant, except for us that were born there. And for those who were wondering, would you go back to Cuba if everything fixes? No, I'm an American. I have been more time in the U.S. than I've been in Cuba, but I have family there. I still have friends that grew up with me there. That they need hope. They need a working economy. They need a system that actually works. Not a perfect one. They need a system that actually works. At least that they're not starving to death. And I think that would be a win for everybody. And I will leave it as that.